Good evening, good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, I'm slightly late. I hope you're having a good evening, and those that are not Lord shared, and you're not having any network issues. We thank you. Just as you enjoy the music, just come in and greet Ninja. I haven't seen you guys on Thursday. Just greet, be nice to Ninja Pundis, and then as you enjoy the music, we'll start in no time. Quite an interesting topic, I must say. I'm excited. Um, please share the link, ask questions. Let's do it like we do it, family. Have a good evening. We'll start just now. Listen, I'm giving you, the Citibank Marines, Germany. A German. Just enjoy. When you hear those sounds, Ugutim Pundis is hosting today. I let me start. I think we've quite behind time. The ones that Abagajoina was stolen Jilin Mase CC busy because I started a bit late. I apologize, family. We had some technical issues here. I even thought, oh man, we had everything, good before now. There were some glitches, but we are okay. We are happy. We are happy. I'd like to thank my team. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, let's pray and invite God. We always invite God. We love God. He's been an amazing God throughout, season in, season out, victory to victory. We have an amazing God, God who's in heaven, the one and only who created the heavens and the earth. We don't create a different God or talk about a different God here. We talk about the same God that created the heavens and the earth, the one that gave us Jesus Christ to die for our sins. Let us be seen. Dear Lord, this evening we thank you. We thank you, God. We thank you for one more time, one opportunity, another chance, God, to make a difference in your world, another chance to make a difference. We pray and we ask you to be with us, God, as you are still awarding us this opportunity to make a difference, God. We don't take this lightly. We know things that are small become big, things that are impossible become possible. We know that you are God who is everlasting, God who never abandoned us. You have been an amazing God. From today until Jesus Christ come back. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Raleboha, Raleboha, Raleboha. You know, I've got a quite an interesting topic, but before we start, we are talking about autism awareness. Before we start, I want Kgomotso to introduce herself, because I decided I don't want to give a problem because she does so much, from the community to from government community, So I wanted her to introduce herself the way that she's gonna feel. She didn't downplay herself or anything. So I wanted her to introduce herself, and then we'll start, and I'll be asking some few questions as we go along. But thank you very much for joining us this evening. Really, we appreciate. Comment over to you. Introduce yourself. Before we have our discussion, we're talking about autism. I'm quite excited. You see why I'm excited. This is exciting. But introduce yourself, and then then we can start this discussion we're going to have. Over to you, man.
All right. Thank you, my brother. Dumelang everybody. Good evening. Ke nna Kgomotso Malegae Moalusi. I like when he says introduce myself the way I like. Ke Mamage Lesedi Lethabo. I'm based in Pretoria. I'm a mother to these twin boys on the autism spectrum. I'm also a civil servant. I work in government in the space of youth development. I have been an activist, I think, a long time in my life. Youth development, women development, and of course, now as a mother, I had to have a wake up call and talk about disability, not from a text or guessing, but having seen the journey that I'm traversing with my children. Ke ngwanyana wa Motswana, ke setlogolo sa bo Monnakgotla, bo Moalusi. I'm a very proud South African. I love spaces like this. I love having a chance to converse and learn from each other. I always feel ke teng mo spacing se so e leng gore we learn more and we grow more. So yeah, that's my short introduction. I look forward to engaging with you. I was saying to my brother earlier, I'm it's a free for all. Please, let's talk, let's hear, let's learn, and let me, through my journey, teach you about how we can really like open up and be inclusive and accommodate some of the people that are most vulnerable in our society, like vulnerable, e leng gore in some of these conditions, ne re sa tsebe, ne re sa rutwe ka tsone, but they exist, and we are here, and we need to show some Ubuntu and learn how to live together. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. No, thanks. As we have alluded, we now talk about autism, which is a neurological spectrum of disorders. But we'll get into that. At the let me now preview. At the end of this, we want to normalize, make people aware, and also we at the end of it all, we need to have a space that somebody who needs help know where to go. We also want to be in a space where we also mute certain things in your head about certain dysfunctionalities or certain things that are quite different from what you used to, and you're giving yourself an explanation or possibly it's a case or what. So as we talk about autism, just before I start, I'm going to ask you certain questions, but before I ask you these questions, let me quote Prof. Naji, which says, an autism is a lifelong neurodevelopmental condition. It is characterized by the difference in behavior, social interactions, communication, special interest, sensory processing. These differences can present people on the autism spectrum with challenges in how they interact with the environment. Okay, so now let me tell you something, that the autism, I like this first, when I teach, I like going into words and how they are being put. He says it's characterized by a difference in behavior. Okay, look, as we are today, I behave completely different from you. I respond to things completely different from you. I say things completely, possibly different from you. But we accommodating each other as being called normal.
Yes.
So if you actually look at this definition, to me, I like the fact that he never started by saying it is a disorder. He
Yes.
said it is a neurodevelopmental condition, right? As we, you know, that mental health we also advocate for, and we've interviewed people. We have a psychologist on our corner who comes in to discuss that. So that's how I want you to look at this. It's a lifelong neurodevelopmental disorder. So lifelong would say to you that you cannot say, I'm going to go to one person, to the next person, to the next person to correct something you don't like.
Yes.
Let me take you again to a normal life. There are certain things that you do that I don't agree with, I don't like, but I don't go get treatment for you to agree with me. I just agree to disagree with you, and I agree that we are different. This is just my opening statement with this definition. So I looked at it quite very closely, and I liked it. And I like the fact that they never said it is abnormal, because some of these people who are autistic, they're much more smarter than some of us. I'm gonna let the expert talk to us about it. Tell me, you I know you're talking from a point of being a mother, but just take us through the journey of you having now finding yourself around. I want you to be the one that tells the story about how do you now end up having this autism awareness. When's Jan? How did we get here? Not that it shouldn't be you doing it, but I want to hear your journey. I'm glad that it's you doing it, but how did we end up here?
Okay. All right, my brother. I'm actually going to start with the quote that you had, and you're quite correct. It's one of the most empowering quotes I've had. And I will start with, when you were explaining, and it will say a neurodevelopmental disorder, right? And neuro, by its very nature, speaks to the brain and how the brain works. Another thing I liked in this definition was how they speak to sensory processing. And it sounds
Yeah,
like a complicated thing, but
yeah,
in essence, sensory processing is how information moves from the brain to the other parts of you. Right. Now let me take you to my journey. Age 31, uh, I have babies, my very first babies, twins nog out, twin boys, and it really, in the terms of pregnancy and the journey, was nothing spectacular or out of the ordinary. Okay,
yeah,
first pregnancy, so maybe I mustn't say that, but nothing out of the ordinary. Twins, born prematurely, stayed in hospital for a while just to gain a bit of weight. And we went home, and I just went into being a mom. And the boys are there and they're busy, and we're going to the doctor and we are going through our milestones. And there are things that now looking back, um, could have given me a signal, but you're thinking, you have two kids, maybe they're not aware of each other, they don't sleep too well, but generally life is good. The first time I started noticing that, okay, maybe something else is at play here, is at that age, just 18 months to 2 years, when kids are
yeah,
supposed to start communicating. And
yeah,
that is not what we are getting. It is not really happening. Again, I'm a twin mother. I'm a single twin mom. So when the boys play, and I have one who doesn't want to play as hard as the other, darling, at that point, I'm like, "Ooh, thank you, Tatim Dimo. Like, let him go play. But then later, I realized that those were some of the early signs. My sons struggled when we had to be in a space with other people. They need to be like, oh, ha ba rate batho, go etsagalang? And at that moment, you're just not taking it in. But really, at the moment when we're supposed to go creche, and they're really not communicating, and there's crying that you don't understand what is the trigger. Now, initially, how tsamaka e ya go bua, which is the one which the majority of parents is actually one of their first signs. And you
yeah,
go to the pediatrician, and like you take it as a first mother. No, 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 no. When you don't know. These are boys. They are premature. Boys are just a little bit slower. You will catch up. So we pass on until we get to about 3. And now it's really getting at me to
no,
say, but why are we not really communicating? So that was the time that we started. And of course, when they went to crash, then you'd get videos from the teacher to say, oh my Lord, your child is crying. Is this a tantrum? Is this a meltdown? What is going on? And here's the most important part. It wasn't just anywhere and everywhere. I realize now it was mostly in spaces, psychologically they call it, where there's social pressure. So as
Yeah.
human beings, as we grow older, we need to be around people,
Mm-hmm.
and we start interacting. And that's when I see that my kids don't necessarily enjoy being around other people, and they feel a bit intense. But now I'll go back to the definition. So with autism,
Yeah.
there is a breakdown in the sensory processing. So in the message from the brain to the body. And how does that message go? Our brains are the things that guide everything that we do. So just now, like the flag is showing autism, my eyes, I see that through my eyes. And the message sent to my brain is that I'm going to read. So I'm going to follow. But what happens with autism is there is a disturbance, and the disturbance can be led on by different things. It
Yeah.
could be the temperature, it could be bright lights, it could be senses. So it is how they process information, sensory information. Sensory
Yeah.
information being information that you process through your eyes, sight,
Yeah.
process that you do through your ears, sound,
Yeah.
smells, what you smell, what you touch. But also with autism is the three extra ones: balance.
Yeah.
Um, at a time how bona ngwana o bona a tsamaya ka matsetsekwane kapo a spina, and with those of us who now know what is up with our kids, they swing a lot, they jump a lot, but it's one of the senses that are not that are struggling. And they also struggle with awareness of body position,
Yeah.
and awareness of internal body cues and sensation. And this last one is quite important because it is there where, okay, on top of ngwana sa bolele, then ga batle go ja, then ga batle go robala. Then on top of it, now we are also struggling things like potty training. But then that is because of the information. So he's hungry, but the information does not get to his brain that he's hungry. And by the time the information comes through to me, I'm having a child in full meltdown.
Yeah.
So that is the journey. I was fortunate in the sense that I had parents who were very on the mark. They were medics themselves, so they were able to assist. But I will admit that Libona for a moment it threw them off. Like, what is this? Yeah.
But but
Um,
but let me ask you something. I want you to let me ask you something now. As a Christian, because now I want you to balance this thing out. As a Christian, and both as somebody who was young, and somebody I'm gonna slide this one in as a black person. You know, you didn't at some point think, Hori, there was some foul play, bewishing because now you see if you define this autism, we still don't know as medics, and that's not my field. But as medics, we still don't know. We call it like any neurological a deficit or any neurological condition. We're saying it's multifactorial, meaning we think there's some genes and we think there's environment that also plays a role.
mm,
At what point did you ever think maybe this was a foul play? They bewitched your kids because you're expecting what you call normal, and they have their own normal. So did you ever think, is this, some foul play, and what did you do? Because somebody's sitting there thinking, wow, I thought we were bewitched, but now, I'm hearing something. What do you say? What are your thoughts?
okay, that one, I love that question because yeah, that's actually why I like talking from the perspective of the Black experience. So, I'm church, right? So initially, none of that came in. These were my only kids. But when people come through, they also see I get one. The behavior looks strange to people. So it's like, "Go etsagalang ka ena? O stoutu, ha o mo tlhokomele." Okay, then they get what has to do. He can't control this. Then of course it came, and I will add in another element, not only as a Black woman, but also as a single parent. "Ah, Kgomotso, bana ba ba ile ko badimong ba ko bone." Is that not what is going on? And these are comments that haven't stopped. My boys are 11 years old. You get them from your nannies, you
Yeah.
get them from family. People will
Yeah.
be like, Hanka, I feel like and they go everywhere. whether ke mo rapella at the river kapo ke mo isa ko mothong. That is what a lot of people say because they
Of
feel gore
course.
ngwana ga ka sekologa fela. That is what it is. On my spiritual journey, I will say, for me, I just thought that God, like, here I am. I'm trying to do this journey. I'm excited about having these twins, and here's a speed bump. I'm a talkative mother, and here you have a child who initially didn't like to make eye contact, initially did not want to be hugged, and you almost also have that to be like, "Mare Modimo bathong, tumelo ya ka, where is it in a moment like this?" Because I don't understand what this is. And I'll just give you one last example. Ke gopola ka kolobetso tsa bana ba ka, it was late, they were over a year. We literally have 2 or 3 pictures only because they are running around. They can't sit still. They can't be in one place uh, uh, for a long time, Then, of course, Harry, which then, of course, goes back to that other thing where people are like, yeah, like there's a deeper thing at play. So, yes, personally and in my immediate family, that is not how it came up, but I still get a lot of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we still get a lot of that about gore ke badimo, maybe modimo batla go bua le wena, or how wa phasetsa badimo, which is also a very funny thing because people who say this don't even know what your traditional spiritual journey is, but they
exactly.
assume that that is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's quite right. And I'm glad that you're taking us through that. And I'm also glad that you can see if you are not somebody who knows where your spirit or where you have given up your soul to, you can actually go knocking on many doors. But while in Pelen you're just dealing with a child who is processing things differently. And I've alluded to you, we all process things differently. Some people, when they're in a pressure of interacting with people, they scream, they yell, they're nervous. You know what I mean? But but
Mm,
but it's how the kids process these things. And what I like is that then let me just tell you, one story of somebody who's famous and is autistic, and you possibly wouldn't know, and the person is so great in what they do that they don't sort of do well in other stuff. Lionel Messi, one of the best footballers we have ever came across, a person who won so many Ballon d'Ors awards. He's autistic. If you check him, he's so good in the pitch. They lose, they do what he does. He hardly ever shows his emotions. He gets there, he's the same. Whether they won or not, he's the same. You see him outside, the way he dresses with his own crew. You wouldn't think he's dressing his age, but that's what he has. But the fact that he's autistic didn't stop him from being able to interact with other people, or rather be able to be, accommodated by other people, honored by other people, also be part of a society. So now, while you are still chilling there trying to get solutions for your kid, wherever your kid is, and while you're trying to see if you want to correct this, you are missing the boat where this person can be great. And I also like that there's a good doctor, on this platforms you watch things. There's a good doctor who's also autistic, but they show you how he behaves and is good at what he does. And I can tell you, on average, his IQ, the way they play him here, is quite high, but he's autistic. You see, so now instead of us trying to, you know correct what is a lifetime or lifelong condition, we need to support and be normal and know how to interact with our kids. And we're going to find out that the challenges and where we can find help, or how we can support one another from being in a community, than to be sending people, no, come on, halamo passage. There's so many things. You will do so many things that you never even knew they exist. And how do I know that people do it? Because when all fail, people now come and consult the professionals. Then you get this history that you've delayed this child this much. We could have included an occupation therapists. We could have included so many speech therapists. We could have included so many special groups that could help us. But now the fact that we don't take this thing well, we don't know about it. That's why we want to be educated, all of us, for us to be able to know about it. I've got another question that I want to ask you. But you sort of dealt with this in your story. But how do you deal with it as a family member? How can you seek help or help the next person? Like when are we like because I know you struggled a bit, and it's sad because we're based in Pretoria, but you sort of struggled a bit. I mean, in our training long time ago, I was doing undergrad to become a doctor. That's many years ago, while I was still looking good and my beard was still black. We visited the school, and there was autistic school, and I've only heard about 2 around Pretoria. You know what I mean? So I know that they said, but where did you go? What did you do? Did you take them to a normal school? When they like, did you try a normal school and fail? What did you do? So, somebody sitting there, they don't know what to do. What did you do?
Okay, I want to go back to where you started and then come in. I will try to condense it quite quickly. You mentioned 2 examples, and you went with the Lionel Messi and the Good Doctor. And I'll give you a disclaimer: the Good Doctor one is a bit of a trigger point for me and many parents. You see, we're living in South Africa. Right, autism is something that doesn't present necessarily every day, but on top of it not presenting every day, sometimes diagnosis and such things need people who are interested in autism. I love the fact that you mentioned about how you did it when you were studying, but I think you will also attest to the fact that it was a very small module in all that you did in medicine, right? So even with ourselves, I mean, these doctors I spoke to you about who said, not yet, the child is still young. It is only when I got to a neurological pediatrician or a pediatric psychiatrist or an occupational therapist that you start getting answers. The other place you also get answers, it's early education. And early education, because Fandi 1, they teach us about communicating and socializing. So they see when somebody is struggling. And for me, it was actually, I mean, at the time I had my kids, had my own dad had been a doctor over 35 years. But it was actually my aunt, who's a teacher, who said, this is autism, actually.
Yeah.
With my dad, we had to go to trainings and attend things and fill up his CPD points just to get the information. Whereas in education, it was a bit faster. Again, you're quite correct. The rural divide is huge. I live in Pretoria. My kids eventually had to come back to me in Pretoria because there were no schools. Because when you go to special schools, go to everybody, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. And one of the things you must understand about autism does not mean there is no cognitive function. And cognitive function, I mean, just because does not mean or what is going on. But what autism does is sometimes there is a delay in, I get a processing information. For example, there's multiple things. There's piano, there's singing, so imagine autism as in somebody who needs to separate everything to understand everything. Yes. And that is what happens. So you get the level of brilliance, and people love going to this idea of the genius. Where I'm sitting, Dr. Kikan, all autistic kids have got to be genius, because to function and live in a world where people don't understand you and you must survive speaks to another level of genius. But if we take the condition itself, due to the fact that one of the elements of it is the repetitiveness, but also focus. So you may find a child who is focused on phones or digital things or soccer. And of course, they become brilliant because it becomes their only focus. And it becomes their only focus because when they get a topic that they appreciate or an item, it is their safe space. It is where they regulate. And just to close off the regulate before you come in with the next question, we all regulate. Ne? Or even more line go home affairs, or you're talking to somebody and they irritate you and you start tapping your foot. That's regulating. It is
Yeah,
stimming.
yeah,
What happens with somebody who's autistic? Because they struggle with communication, that becomes bigger. So my child goes, he doesn't like it on his ears, or he taps louder, or he makes louder sounds, or screams. And because people are not used to that behavior, they call it inappropriate behavior, it looks extra abnormal. Whereas pila pila, we all do it. But it's just that we have
yeah,
been, because we can read social cues, I know to hum or to doodle on my paper instead of going, you know what I mean? So that is what it is. So the help is in schools, the help is on the internet, and the help is in people like us who went through the first few years. Literally, when I started on my journey with my boys, it felt like nobody understood or had autism. Now, our shame, ke a go shopong, no kopana le motho at the pharmacy, we talk quick, and you find it is there. It is just that people didn't have a name, we didn't have an understanding. And the minute you know, there is this peace that comes over you, like, okay, this is what it is, and this is how it presents, and this is now how I can assist.
yeah. That I I like what you said. You said so many things that I like. Let me repeat all the stuff that you said. In our training, we did little of this autism. I mean, I think we only went there once or 1 week, and that was it. And that was a long time ago. And I can tell you, there's so many things that I might have forgotten. So normally, all your normal doctor, like, unless if you go specialize in it, you'd miss it too, because you hardly ever see those people. You are the last resort, impelling if they think Uguti, you can help. So that the fact that there's where you can get help, you know, it motivates us. That's why, which is why I called you, not with a medical doctor who's going to read it and come and tell us this is what it is, but somebody who will experience it. And it's quite right. When a situation, something happens, you calm yourself down your own way inside. They just do it while you're looking at them. That's the difference. But I also want to say something, and that you said, most of us autistic children are actually above normal intellectual. And how, even if you can think there's so many things that you don't understand, but imagine, one of the stuff that they like is that they like things to be the same every day. If they can manage, they
Predictability.
want things to stay the same every day. If it means you wake up at this time, you do this at this time, and you go to school, they want things to be, they don't want the things, this imbalances into dynamic things. They don't like dynamic things. So imagine yourself, you wake up in the morning each day, you go to your work, and you do the same thing again and again and again and again. I can tell you, will be so much excellent in it.
Yes,
For
yes,
them, it is not
yes.
boring. For you, it's boring. No, life is, even when you see, sometimes when somebody says there's too much quietness in the house, there's too much, peace in the house, let me cause trouble in jail, go to adrenaline a bit. This is what you need. Sometimes when you're on call, you wish, this call is quiet, it's quiet, I'll can adrenaline just a bit, so that we can run and go save somebody's life a little bit, but they'll text the kids, if like you, and you're quite right. I mean, I've got this other cousin of mine who has an autistic son. Electronic wise, he's so good that if you
Brilliant.
get stuck,
Brilliant.
you
Yeah.
ask him, he takes your laptop, he sorts you out right there. And because he does this, that's what he does. So what I'm trying to get to is that if you have an autistic family member, just observe them than to try and call them to order, and see what they like. Let them dominate there. You will see that they become the best. Let them dominate there, and don't change them and say no, but don't do this thing in this. Let them do it in their own way. Imagine you do something, then they will say in Gomemland say repeat,
Yeah. You
repeat
repeat a
again
good
and
thing.
again and again. And you're getting better at that. And that's something that people mustn't despair. But you wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to come in there and to say how, when you have a family member, how do you act? And
Yeah.
it sounds like a simplistic thing, but you have to be yourself. If, one of the brilliance, and I liked at the beginning when you explained that autism is a spectrum. So it's not one thing. Like I'm
Correct.
raising twin boys who are autistic, they are not the same. I'm in a couple of mommy groups. Our kids are not the same. My child's focus, your child's focus is not. But one thing is very true. Their instincts are on point, right? So, for example, even when we're looking for help or friends or whatever, they read energy very well, very clear to be like, okay, this is Dr. Kikana. These are his intentions. I get it. They almost, if I'm using good language, they almost cut through the nonsense quite quickly because they are literal. So they need things to be concrete.
Yeah.
So autistic child is going to say to you, Dr. Kikana, your hair doesn't look like your beard. And they're not rude. He's just telling
Yeah.
you what he sees. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
At my kids' school, sometimes I go there and I'm part of the intervention with parents when kids have been naughty. And I had this one boy who had who said to one of the prefects that she looks like a fat pig and fat green pig or something like that. And I said to him, but this is not the right thing to do. And he looks at me like, and he's not smiling. He's not
Mm.
like even how because they're so literal, it's almost like they're sarcastic. And he's like, but she is. And then
It's
she was dressed
true.
in green. She looked like a pig. And her nose is and at this time you're supposed to be disciplining this child. Man, where did nitty like whoopa? And then you're like,
Yeah. Like
okay, this is it. But that is how he understands. And that's why, especially when our autistics get older, people struggle with them because like right now, you're almost laughing with me because you're getting the humor. They don't get it. Things are very literal, very linear. And then that's why when people are around them, they think they're these weirdos, like why are very t-shirt greeny every day. That is his safe
exactly.
space. That is what
Mm.
works because the rest of the world to him is so chaotic. Bright
Yeah.
lights, sounds, temperature changing. So as a parent and as a family member, you need to be very observant of your child, understand their triggers. And then I'll give you a last example. One of the things I always say to families and why they struggle is but ba bona bana ba le tantrum, like screaming or being unhappy. But when you are in autistic families, there are some things you are going to stop. So, for example, ha ke tlotla go phathing ya gago o na le gumba gumba. It's too much for my child. Once I understand what sensory processing is, I then know this works, that doesn't work. So I take my boys to the restaurant, but I call the restaurant before we leave to say, please, I'm ordering, we are coming. Because if I don't, it took me a long time. I had to do a social book, like pictures with my son to be like, we go to the restaurant and then we eat and then we do this. Guess what happens? Ratsana mole, Dr. Kikanakiwala at the first table, also drink. Oh, letabono izela drinki one, because I'm in the restaurant, there is food, we eat. There's no
Yeah.
sense of it is mine, it is yours.
It is yours.
Right?
Yeah.
But as a parent, instead of crying all the time and just be like, oh, the world hates us, you must also do the work to make your
Yes.
child safe. So you tell
Yeah.
him, he doesn't speak. My boy's 10. He doesn't say a single word. But I discuss everything with him. We're going to take a bath. We're going to eat. Kasani, we are going to visit. Because the information filters through. But you also need to keep doing the work to keep him safe. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, this is quite an interesting topic. Remember, if you have a comment or question for our high profile guest, please do so, and then
Okay.
she'll answer. So we'll start. That month already asked the question. We'll get to it when we do our questions before we close. I wanted to ask the schooling. Take me through the schooling. What, because I want that to come clear.
Yeah.
Because we end up subjecting our kids. We say harsh things to our kids as well because of
Yeah.
this. If the schoolwork doesn't look like the other people's schoolwork, and then it actually now causes more damage before you get a solution. So schooling, how did you maneuver that to end up getting them a school if they really were you are happy with? What did you do?
It was a nightmare.
Okay.
I laugh at the high profile thing. My children still struggled for 3 to 4 years to get a school. And sometimes you literally have to be a Karen. Eh? You need to throw a tantrum and get angry to get the system to move. Because originally you will want to go to a government school. The waiting lists are so long. Can you imagine going to the Department of Education and someone telling you, no, we need something, and they want from their educational psychologist, but the waiting list is 9 months. Yaanong ngwana o ke tlo etsang ka ena 9 months at home? How is this going to work? And that is just the reality of how it works. So you must, in many times, let me tell you one of the things. Autism is a hella expensive, very expensive, because, and like many disabilities, you are paying extra for everything. If
Yeah.
transporter, I need somebody in the transport who can take care of my kids if it's not a specialist transport, right? If you want a specialist, they'll tell you, listen, I don't want a medical aid. I need to be paid up front. If you go
Yeah.
to something like if you go on Google and you talk about therapy, because autistic kids need therapy, occupational therapy, speech
Yeah.
therapy, all sorts of therapies depending on how they present, right? And they would say if you go to countries like Canada or the US or the West, where kids, like the good doctor, get diagnosed nice and early, they would say you need therapy of up to 30 to 40 hours a week. Now tell me, South African person, where does that even happen?
Yeah.
Before we could get into school, because I couldn't keep the kids at home. Oh, they are shop, they're private spaces. Oh, and I don't want to say fly by night. They charge you an arm and a leg. If I had to take you through my support group, moms are paying everything from 4,000 to 40,000 a month, because everybody will promise you a solution. And
Yeah.
just like again, how not to you know, to have a 10-year-old who's never said the word mama can, it can shake your soul. It can
Yeah.
really shake your soul. So you will do sometimes anything and everything. But our government schools are there. I mean, Pretoria is one of the places that has the most schools. And I would say, of my first experience in government the past 2, 3 years, it is a good experience, but even then, not enough. It's almost like Khwazamiwa, you know, we're catching up the information. And one of my biggest hurts and frustration is, what does this mean for my kids when the system is not moving fast enough? And then your next question would be, why don't you take them to mainstream? Well, in understanding you're autistic, you gotta feel the space. And I'll take my one boy. Let's say that I took him to Sparks. I took him to Sparks because I wanted small classes, some visual stuff where he would be. But people will say the cruelest thing to your child. You know, I was driving with my child and he just kept saying to me, Ma, why do they say I'm stupid? You know? So sometimes it's a to say, no, let's get them through, let's get them into the CAP system. But it comes with other issues, because if the environment does not understand their sensory needs, their sensory diet, we call it, you must know what your child's sensory triggers are and be in an environment that supports that. And sometimes they're not enough of such spaces that exist.
Yeah. No,
Thank you.
I could imagine. You know, even at the normal school, you still find that you still have to go through this occupational therapist or speech therapist and
Or pay
all
for an
those things.
assistant out of your own
Yeah.
pocket, which by the law,
Um,
by the way, they're not supposed to make you pay. They're supposed to cover it. But we don't know our
that's
own
true.
laws. So, yeah,
But
yeah.
now, is there any school around Pretoria? Because I know you're an activist. Is there any school around Pretoria where somebody, you know, realizes, okay, I think my child is autistic. Can I take them straight to that school for them to get assessed and be given a space, and you don't pay?
Yes, schools that you don't pay exist. Unfortunately, our education system as it sits, I mean, you've seen parents crying about the internet thing, is you have to go through district. And going through district sometimes is like pulling teeth. It is really frustrating. So I will name the schools in Pretoria. My kids are at Villanova in Eastland. There's Unica, which is one of the flagship schools. Prospectus has introduced a few autism classes. There's Elma, and I'm telling you the government ones. And I think in Social Gove, there's a place called Bethesda.
Yeah.
The rest are all private. Grace Foundation, Tomorrow's People, the Star Academy. And you can hear as I go with the names that the budget goes higher. Satula. So Pretoria is actually, apart from Cape Town, one of the best cities to have an autistic in South Africa because there are specialists, black and white. My database is full of the black mostly, but anyway, that's my little thing. There are specialists, there are resources, there are schools in Pretoria. But as I was telling you earlier, I'm in Hestia Park. I'm driving to Eastland. So I'm driving 36 kilometers one way to take my kids to school. It's ridiculous, right? When in mainstream kids have to be within 5 kilometers of school. We
Yeah.
don't get that. You know, you travel far. And my kids are in school as the SGB. We are paying for an extra 45 staff, therapists, and whatever because government is going to give us three speech therapists in a school of 500 children. Those are the realities. Those are the heartbreaking realities that when you then come to me as a parent and you're like, oh my Lord, your child, have you seen the one in Good Doctor? My child at this rate cannot be the good doctor because the education system, he waits so long. And then when he gets there, it is not even at the level that it needs to. I must still keep up, got my own therapies and my own teachings just to get him on par. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
it's a bit sad. It's frustrating.
but I'm glad even what you went through, you still sound like a very good mother from where I'm standing, and it's said that you're doing it alone. But now I want to know something. Let's say now, the spectrum of a child wanting to be alone and not wanting to interact, to a spectrum to those that are able to tolerate such. How can I interact with an autistic with a person with autism?
Okay, so there's
Because
no black.
you'll find that, let me just broaden up. You'll find that people actually want to befriend them,
Mm.
be sort of their safe space, or even if whatever that they do they like, they want to be around them but not to irritate them. So how do we do that?
It's not a once-off thing. Sorry, my lights just went off, but at least I still have a marker. It's not a once-off thing, and like I said, every autistic presents differently. What I have found with my kids and my friends, being around helps, right?
Yeah.
Being around. So let's say your friend has an autistic child. Please don't disappear because that's what's happened to a lot of us. Friends disappear. You don't get invites to parties or things because your child is just going to be awkward. But if you come into my space and you come enough, my child will come to you because he sees your familiarity. You keep coming through and he will lead you on how you engage. But if you're saying generally, how do you deal with autistic? Just show some kindness. Don't be overbearing. Don't force to touch or hold because that can be quite frightening. Um, um, let's not get to so keep things a bit calm, but be nice. Kindness can be can be can be received by most people, right? Um, Another thing where you could get his interest is if you have a child that is a bit of a loner, you see that sometimes you'll have children who line up things on the floor and that his interest maybe is little cars. Join him at his interest. There you're opening the conversation. And then just another point. So one of the big misnomers that happened on this journey, people's like, what level autism is it? Are you like mild or high or light or high functioning or how not functioning? But the reality of autism is it is a support thing. So a person is either high support or low support because
Yeah.
even the autistic person who, let's say, can read and then goes to mainstreaming, if you go to us the parents, we will tell you that we have children who still struggle with brushing their teeth, sometimes having buttons on their clothes or shoelaces on their feet. So some things that are a bit hidden, they still exist. And then if you would allow me just to interact with two things. So how do you cope as a mother? I don't want to lie. The positivity did not just come on its own. I
Yeah.
had to go low. I had to go low and lose myself, just feel how God just does not like me. It was like, for me, it was punishment for everything I'd done wrong to my parents. And this was it. I was fortunate to have family. And I'm fortunate
Okay.
to have the type of personality and the type of loving nature that people give back. But I will tell you, if I had to show you my circle now versus my circle then, there are some friends, like especially childhood friends and people who hang around. There are people who will leave you. But our kids have also then taken us on a journey with people who are going through similar journeys. And you find the peace with each other. You know, somebody who understands why you would have a 14-year-old who struggles with potty training, right? And then just one last question. I saw a guy speaking about sexual behavior. And this one, it's such a human rights thing. You know, we live in a society, especially as Batu where we have this thing, yauri, Batu disabled, di ba rata, sex. There is no such thing. Let's talk about it from a psychological point of view. People who have any level of intellectual disability or neuro issues, they struggle with impulse control. And impulse control is all kids when they grow, you will know as a doctor, children go to that phase where they put everything in their mouth or they touch their body parts. That is how you become aware of yourself. What our children struggle with is understanding the appropriate place
Yeah.
where that should be done. So it is not like this the sexual behavior is heightened or the sexual impulse is heightened.
The tightened. Yeah.
Yeah, it is not heightened. It's because there is no impulse control. And it is actually very scary for us as parents because I don't know if you've seen how gorgeous our children are. Yo, people, you know, I actually even do body searches with my kids because you're always afraid of people being around your kids and what can happen and what they'll do with them because banale disability esabonteng mo sefatlhego. Like if I had to sit with my boys, you wouldn't know they're autistic until you saw their behavior. So then a lot of people then get angry with them. Ba bona ba le cheeky, ba bona ba tshwaregile, and that's why so many get beaten and attacked in communities, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. You know, I like, so you I hope Manaka is happy. Um
I beg your pardon, I missed the last point.
I'm just hoping that I'm saying that I hope Ukobi is happy with the answer you gave to the question. You answered your question, right?
Yeah, I tried. I tried. Manaka, how did it affect you as a mother? How do you deal? Okay, so let's talk about acceptance. Acceptance is not a once. It's not a destination. You don't just get a diagnosis and you're like, I get this. I'm happy, right? Um, it changes. Remember, Arbalibana, like all of us dream of what our future is going to be. Now, to get the realization that I have children that I may have to be supportive of my whole life,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is an adjustment, right? With autism as well, you know, the other thing is sometimes you have your child, you have a bit of progress, and then out of nowhere, they regress. Some of those things are very difficult to deal with. Being an autistic parent requires you to be constantly alert and observant of your child because ke drive ke ba isa sekolong. Motho ke yo o nkgasa ka mpama. I don't even know what irritated him. And it could be anything. It could be that he bit his own tongue. It could be that he feels a little bit cold or we tipile ka zipi. It could be anything. So you must always go back and try to figure out what triggered this and then how do we deal with it. And kids are kids. Kids, by their very nature, are very manipulative people. So
Yeah.
sometimes your child can act difficult because they don't want to do something. You know, he doesn't want to do it. And the trap that many parents then fall in is over medicating children to the point yeah, I don't want like a zombie and then they cannot
They cannot
engage.
function. They
Yeah,
can't even
yeah,
function.
yeah. So
You know,
hey, that's not how it works. That's not how it should work, you know.
Let's take Yvonne's question. I must say, I love your energy. You know, you sounding like you are teaching us about something you've read, not something you're dealing with. You know, for you to still looking like that with what you're telling us, you know, I'm just looking at him like, wow, you know, yeah, it really is indeed.
Yeah,
You can
my
be
brother, but you
an
know, girl,
excellent
he,
mother. Being a mothering is a choice, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Let's advise Yvonne. I
Move
have no
on.
clue about stem cell therapy, though. I don't have a clue
Okay.
myself. Have you heard
So
something?
again, I want to go back to what I was saying about the lot of solutions that you get on this journey.
Yeah,
I loved what you said earlier on that even as a medic, you still have not identified what causes autism.
yeah,
And at least uh, the one basic thing is it has become understood that it is incurable. Although I could name a few schools for you, even in Pretoria, that think they can cure your children for you, you know, and parents fall for this. So there is a theory, there is some research where stem cell therapy could assist,
yeah.
but it is unproven as yet. It is an expensive process. Some people have been able to take their kids through to India to do this, and they speak of progress. There is also another theory that
Mhm.
if you cut out things like gluten and sugar and
Yeah.
milk and animal products, but like I said before, because autism presents so differently in every autistic, the response or what works with your child is very different. Let me take you to my personal experience. So here I am, I'm a bit older, I'm running my own finances, I'm even running my own brokenness. Now you get into this thing, and people tell you, do the gluten, do whatever, do whatever. At some point with my kids, we're struggling to eat, right? We're struggling to eat, and the non-glutens will tell you the kids mustn't eat bread, water, water, water. There was a time my boy loves wheat bix. Now tell me, Dr. Kikan, am I going to stop giving him wheat bix because somebody has a different experience? I'm not. I struggled with this child. Now I'm seeing that he's interested in certain things. And
Yeah.
unless it is affecting him in another way, I'm not going to stop. So I think in the world of autism, you know, they as parents, they're not a judge to be like, are you doing the right thing? Are you not doing the right thing? Where I am is you gotta read your child's energy and you gotta do what works for your child. Because I don't understand how I'm going to Mamelodi somewhere to go and tell somebody, cut all of these things out to see where
And
we're gonna go.
what they're
It
gonna give
doesn't.
the child?
What are you gonna give the child? In many families, this is not the only child. I mean, in my sense, I mean, there was a time in the beginning where I thought God was against me, but now I'm like, oh Lord, let me make you laugh. Private joke. So I wanted eight boys, eight boys. God gave me two boys with a personality of 12. But I keep busy, ne? I am inspired. I'm going up, I'm going down. But the victories are many. So God does give you what you want. It's just, I think I've learned to specify, okay, spec this by that. Maybe you will listen. So, you know, it's an interesting journey. And I think for me, I would encourage Yvonne to do what she feels comfortable with. Because the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about how autism is not so well known, guess what happens? We are now all scientists and we need to document this journey and we need to talk to each other because it is amongst us that we have learned um, um, things that are helpful. And I'll give you one last example. I have a friend, Komafiki, and Dr. Tumi is a pediatrician. And in this journey of parents talking and black parents talking, we're able to even go back to say, you know, some of the things that go therapy. I mean, my child is struggling to speak. And then I have a therapist who's like, you know, what is this? Is this a baseball bat? Where is he running into a baseball bat? So we changed to say, okay, let's get things that our children understand. Ne?
Yeah.
Let's go to
Yeah.
therapy and use the things that they know
The everyday
to get
thing.
better success. Yes.
You know that's you know that's quite interesting. You know, I'm going back to, and as you gather around your last parting shots, Ngwana Maredi Sue. Um, she's saying this, because as well, on an autistic son, I'm saying this on her behalf, because I know the son. So that's why she's loving, because she knows what it means going through there. But we see what I like is that you are able to still educate us on this. When we started, we said we want you to understand what autism is, autistic people, and then we make an awareness that you are aware there's something like that, and then you are aware there's certain things that you can do. It's I like the fact that from here we'll be moving into accepting early, and also it shows you that you can tailor make the therapy of your child, because you're the one who knows your child better. You spend time with them, you know the triggers, you take note, you actively become involved, and you know how to sort of create that safe space for them in your family. And anyone who doesn't understand them, tough. This is your home is their space. And I like the fact that even the therapist trying to let them speak, teaching them things that they're not even in that sport. And so why would you want to know something like that? But you wouldn't know if you're not active in your child's life, in your child's progress. But if you now active, you realize, but no, but this man, how cricket or baseball, these things are even going through. So even to this thing, he doesn't go there, watch the games. So this just becomes something that the child doesn't need. And I also like the fact that each day when you want to know a person in a normal life, when you want to know a person, is to let them behave the way they would behave in any situation without being solicited by you, or confused by, or convinced by you. So the same things, if you find these people interested in certain things, you join them to understand them, not to try and correct them and try and shift their focus. Because sometimes us as parents, and we impose ourselves. Sometimes we correct our mistakes on our children. If I wanted to be a pilot and I decided I want to be a doctor, I want my child to be a pilot because I thought there's a better life. So you're channeling somebody trying to correct yourself, but this is not what you come across with autistic people. It's you being in the space, and you trying to understand them as well. So I like the education you're giving us. And I'm gonna ask the team to as you're gonna give your last parting shots, and you're a Christian, I'm gonna ask you to also pray when we're done. As your parting shot. So but what I want to say is that I'm gonna ask the team, so that you come back again to give us a progress, to educate us, because I can tell you that we spend little time as professionals in this, and I'm saying this from experience. I'm saying this from a whole lot of experience. Ever since I left school many years ago, I've done nothing but study. I was actually laughing at myself that I left school many years ago, and I left my matric. When I'm done with my matric, I've been doing nothing in my life but study. Like literally. But I don't know as much as in terms of autism. That shows you how much behind we are in South Africa. There are few people that you'll find that will make those will pick that up early, will be able to run with it. It's people like you who went through this journey and are willing to talk about it and are looking at the positive side, that we also get enlightened. And for that, I'd like to thank you. Your parting shots before Sivala. It has been excellent. It's been excellent.
All right. Two things for me. One of the very exciting things for me in this time, Dr. Kikan, is how we as parents, we as Black parents, have started doing things for ourselves. It is really incredibly exciting. So, Onala Kgomotso who speaks, but I'm no longer alone. We are like an army and a force. In fact, I love the fact that we got today to speak when on the weekend we hosted our first family autism market, where we said, listen, instead of struggling with your family, whatever, we have a venue, come with all of our children, and then invite your friends and family. We had a day with autistics from age 3 to age 40, because it is very necessary that us as parents also see older autistics, to understand that it's possible on the other side. So we are there. I am Kgomotso. The names I use now are the names on Facebook. If you're talking autism, hit me up anytime. Please do share my number. It is great for WhatsApp. But also on the groups, I'm gonna ask WhatsApp to you as well. Maybe when you share this, to say there are many groups, so you don't have to be like, "Yo, come to Gyola, what? No, no, no. We are working together. There's Autism Ekasi, there in Soshanguve, in Mamelodi and Eersteres. There's a group called Mokwa, where it's mothers of children with autism, and they're around Joburg. The group I belong to is called, I belong to all of them, but my primary group is called Puzzle Piece Conversations. And we are mothers, and we speak and we vent. And now we've even started bringing our fathers through, because I'm a daddy's girl. So nobody's going to tell me about black fathers not being great, right? Black fathers are
But
pretty awesome.
Nganekwane.
Pretty awesome.
When the man and his daughter were walking in the forest, people said Nganekwane. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, my very, very last comment is you know what? Modimo wa makatsa, there are things we go through and you do not know it has a bigger purpose. I was saying to you earlier, I'd worked in NGOs, I've worked in government, but I think it has been in the 11 years of raising my children that my own ministry and purpose has become incredibly clear. It seems like all the lessons and all the things that came from there were made for this time to engage on this. And I am grateful. A few years back, could not talk about autism without crying, nonstop and feeling sorry for myself. Mare kore le teng ha se mohlolo gore bana ba ka ke o mphile lethabo le lesedi kgotso, because literally they are those words in my life. You know, God has been incredibly good, and I am enjoying this journey, and I am honored for this journey. And for once, I'm able to even look at him to say, you know what? No, you sent the right one. I am the one. Like, send me. I'm doing this because it makes sense, you know. And to talk about it and to say, please do extend an invitation. What I didn't tell you at the beginning. So you invited me over. Because I will be back, and I will be back, and I will be back, because I'm a very big believer that we have so much to learn from each other, and we have so much that we are able to achieve and do in our daily lives. Huh? The bigger picture, 5 years voting, here we have real work to do, and we can actually do it ourselves. So I'm incredibly grateful to you,
Thank you.
Ospi. So grateful.
Thank you. I'm glad to the team to having done the work to find you. And you said something, very touching. Sometimes when God puts you through something, I'm talking from experience, you can be in the middle of it and think, but to be fried like that at a high temperature, God. But on the other side, you understand why you had to go through what you went through. Literally, I wake up every morning and say, God is my superstar. If there's any word that I could use, I'd say it's a superstar. Looking at the journey I have traveled in my personal space, ministry-wise, family-wise, and I look back, you'll understand why. And now you understand properly after everything, you actually send the right person. I was going through this so that I can be able to handle this. And that's what God does. So whatever you're going through right now, wherever you are, it is for a greater purpose. I can tell you that without even stuttering. It's for a greater purpose. You don't see it right now. You do not start by eating the fruits. You start by planting and then watering, nurturing, and then later you eat the fruits. When you are nurturing, planting through in, season out, winter, autumn, and all those seasons, the time you get the fruits, you realize, but I thought when I was doing this, it was a punishment. Let me leave the teachings for Sunday. You'll find us again on Sunday. We are live also on Sauma HD Radio. Service from 7 to 9 a.m.
Okay.
We appreciate you supporting us. We also appreciate the people that take that time during load shedding. And I'm glad you're the one who's load shedding. Imagine if it was me, I was not going to be visible.
But now let's spotlight.
You, I just use some color can reflect. People can still see you even when you're in the dark. Imagine if it was me. Sometimes in the middle of the night I wake up and I still have to find myself up until I switch on the light. But anyway,
Yeah.
Telutandas so that we can close. Telutandas.
All right. Okay. Father God, gracious God, thank you. Thank you for this space. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for this journey. There have been times we have not understood, but thank you for the daily strength and the joy and the light. Thank you for Dr. Kekana, Leosfina, and the spaces that they have created. The answers are with us. As long as you put breath in our in our lungs and give us a heartbeat, the work is not done. Thank you for abundant life. Thank you. I think my prayer is just for thank you. Thank you, Lord. And bless these precious people, and may they take all that they've learned here today by Itamaise, by Atise, by Tusas Chabasabone, Malapa Abone. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen. We thank you and we bless the Lord for you. We thank the Lord that we came across you. And lastly, for myself, I'd like to thank the team, the beautiful team, the MK team, and all behind the scene. Nyabonga kakhulu. God has been really great. God has been great. And thank you for the support that you give us Thursdays and Sundays. I really appreciate. For myself, I really appreciate. I'm that man who just grew up in the rural areas of Mpumalanga, and seeing what God has done through my life and through your life. I really appreciate God. And as long as I still breathe, I'm not perfect, but as long as I still breathe, I will worship and I will lift up the name of God, because I move, I live, I find my being in Him. From myself and MK team, I'd like to thank you as I bid you goodbye. Have a great evening. We'll see you again on Thursday. Siyabonga bazalwane. We love you. From myself, I am Dr. Kekana. I am Dr. Kekana and Pastor Kekana. I'm your host. Have a good evening. Bye bye. Siyantana nonke.